When my mother was campaigning for the first attempt at Richard Nixon, trying to get the presidency. And she was a mad campaigner for Richard Nixon, and we went out in her station wagon, which was draped with all sorts of placards all over her station wagon, and I was sitting, the only thing I really remember is how freezing cold my hand was, holding the flare, sitting on the tailgate of the station wagon. You could do it in those days. Sitting on the tailgate of the station wagon as we drove through town, advertising that people should vote for Richard Nixon. And this is what we did, or what my mother did, to support her candidate, to make this parading demonstration with placards and noise and light. Well, today, Jesus' entrance into Jerusalem, his disciples are demonstrating for their candidate. The expectation is that all of the thousands of pilgrims who are also marching will ask, who is this? Why? Nobody knows who Jesus is. Where has he been? He's been up north in Galilee. Don't you remember that he left town when John the Baptist was arrested? He's been doing all of his work in the north country. He's a stranger to Jerusalem. So if the disciples are going to have Jesus make an entrance, they're going to have to get people's attention. And what better way, don't have him walk in, have him ride in. Now, Matthew is not complete without saying that this entrance of Jesus into Jerusalem stirred up the town. Now, we know, when else did Jesus stir up Jerusalem? Does anybody remember? Oh, the night he was born. The night he was born. Who was pacing back and forth the night he was born and upset? Herod, right? Trouble. Herod was trouble. And remember, he sent those three stooges, those three wise men out to check out where he was, right? With the expectation that they would report back to him and tell him where the kid was, because what did he want to do? He wanted to get rid of him because he heard there was a new Messiah in town. Well, this is, 33 years before. Matthew has another image again, that yet again Jesus comes into Jerusalem and stirs up the city. And the Greek word that is used here, this is wonderful. The Greek word that's used for stirring up, creating the turmoil, is sio. S-E-I-O. It is the root of another word, sizo, which sounds very much like a word we use in English, particularly here in California, seismic, which is what we use to discuss earthquakes. That root word, sio, the description of how Jesus turns Jerusalem upside down is shaking it up. Literally, earthquake, shaking it up. He's gotten everything so stirred up that it's rumbling around. People are very shaken up by Jesus' arrival in Jerusalem. There are lots and lots of people who are walking along, and when they ask, who is this? The disciples answer, this is the prophet, Jesus, come from Galilee. They didn't say, this is the Messiah. They said, this is the prophet who has equal stature with Moses, their candidate. The other word that is heard being spoken by the people is this word, Hoshana. We don't say it that way. is the way it is pronounced. And Hoshana means deliver us, save us. That's why we read Psalm 118. We beseech you, save us. That is where the word Hoshana appears in the Psalms. Hoshana, deliver us, save us. The other statement, blessed is the one who comes, is also from Psalm 118. And I don't want to burst your bubble, but it was the phrase that was spoken to everyone who came to the temple. Blessed is the one who comes to worship at the temple. Blessed in the name of the Lord is the one who comes to worship at the temple. It was an everyday saying in those days, but by the 1st century, it had become like an everyday hurrah, whoopee, hip hip hooray. Kind of like our word goodbye. But you know that used to be a prayer. Goodbye got smallened up. It used to be, God be with you. And it became goodbye. This blessed in the name of the Lord is the one who comes to worship at the temple. Became just a cheer. Hoshana became just a cheer. Hurrah! Hoshana! But it meant deliverance. Save us. This is the day that Jesus came into Jerusalem, and his disciples believed that this was the day of salvation. This was the day of deliverance. This was the day of victory. This was the day of God's kingdom come on earth. This was the day when Jesus was going to make everything right. But Matthew is very clear to tell us that the same people who were cheering and yelling Hoshana, who covered the donkeys and the colt with cloaks, and who didn't wave palms, there weren't any palms in this. They put branches on the ground, but they didn't wave palms. It says these same people are the people who later this week will not be saying Hoshana. They will be saying, let him be crucified. The walk is to take the challenge. The walk for all Christians is to hang on in the time of trial. The test is when we are hit hardest, when we are broken, when we are battered, when we are ill. That is the time of testing. That is the time to hang on tight and not walk away. That's Matthew's message to his people who were tormented every day, who were rejected every day, who lived in a community where the temple didn't like them and the Romans didn't like them. They had no popularity. All they had was each other. And Matthew says, hang on, hang on, hang on. For your deliverance is sure, and your victory in Jesus is sure.